Welcome to Meet the Archive Online. My name is Frank Roemen and I'm Director of Collections at iFilmmuseum. This year's edition of Meet the Archive will be different for two reasons. First of all, due to the pandemic, we will not present and perform on-site. Instead, we will present an 8-part series online. Second, the curators will not look back to all the restorations, preservations, presentations and all the research we did last year. Instead, we will celebrate our 75th birthday. iFilmmuseum exists this year 75 years. And the iCurators will zoom in to the history of 75 years. So I wish you a lot of fun with our online Meet the Archive. This is part 6.
This poster is from the collection of the iFilmmuseum. It is an original Russian poster from 1929 with the stamp of the Dutch Censorship Committee, top right, which proves that the poster was used in the Netherlands. It is the poster for Dziga Vertov's The Man with the Movie Camera, which is one of the key films in the collection of I, and which we will use here as a vehicle to tell something about this collection and its history, and which consists not only of films but also of posters, photographs, documents, books, scores and much more. It was in January 1952 when the Filmmuseum found a home in the Stedelijk Museum as the result of bringing together the collections of the Uitkijk and the Dutch Historical Film Archive. The Uitkijk collection, with its many avant-garde films from the 1920s, was in particular important because it was the point of departure for many film programs in the Stedelijk Museum. The first director of the Filmmuseum, Jan de Waal, was a young and energetic person. He was a talented networker and managed to have the director of the Stedelijk Museum, Willem Sandberg, on the board of the Filmmuseum. Sandberg was a strong supporter of the activities of the Filmmuseum, not only of the film screenings but also with a number of exhibitions. With the Filmmuseum in the Stedelijk, it was confirmed, so to say, that film was considered to be an integral part of the artistic developments of the 20th century, by which the tradition of the Filmliga was continued. From 1952 and onwards, the screenings in the Stedelijk Museum were a meeting place for filmmakers and critics, and also for younger generations. The annual Congress of the International Federation of Film Archives was held in 1952 in Amsterdam and a few years later in 1960 again. International guests came to Amsterdam. Here is the renowned Hans Richter with his wife and Jan de Waal, who picked the couple up from the train. This amateurish film documented the visit of Hans Richter to the Uitkijk cinema, where he had been also before the war to present his cinematographic experiments. In 1940, Richter had gone to the USA, where he had become one of the leading figures to educate a new generation of experimental filmmakers. Several of his pre-war films, like this film, Voormiddagsboek, were preserved in the Uitkijk collection and are now in the collection of I. Recently, these films have been restored digitally together with German partners. Also other avant-garde films from the 1920s are in the Uitkijk collection. Films from Roetman, Fischinger, Buñuel, René Clair, Dulac and many others. All these films are originally from the Filmliga Uitkijk collection and were of great importance for the programming activities of the Filmmuseum in the 1950s in the Stedelijk. In the 1950s, the Film Museum made these films also widely available for screenings by film clubs elsewhere in the country. Here we see the film titles from Richter, Fischinger, Ruttmann, Clair, Dulac and others. Also Soviet films are in this catalogue. Also The Man with the Movie Camera, which was screened many times and even made available as a 16mm film print to facilitate screenings in smaller venues. The Filmliga had a pronounced interest in films from the Soviet Union. It was actually The Mother by Pudovkin that urged intellectuals to create the Filmliga. The Mother was forbidden by Dutch authorities after the unrest that Eisenstein's Potemkin had created a year earlier. Only by means of a private screening for members the screening of The Mother was possible. May 14, 1927. No guests allowed. The Mother is evidently an important title for the Eye collection. In recent years, not only the film was restored, but also other documents were acquired and preserved. With the magazine and a manifesto, the Filmliga's right to exist was emphasized. Their belief in the pure autonomous cinema, film as art, was the core of their interest and public activities, which could still be encountered in the activities of the Film Museum in the 1950s. In January 1929, Soviet film director Pudovkin visited Amsterdam and gave a lecture. Joris Ivens, who was the projectionist of The Mother in May 27 and an active Liga member, showed Pudovkin his film The Bridge, and as a result Ivens was invited to Russia. In the years to follow, Ivens went several times to Russia and worked on a number of films there. In this photograph we see Ivens, left, and Pudovkin on the right, with Valentina Milman, secretary of the later famous writer Ilya Ehrenburg. Pudovkin was not the only Russian filmmaker who visited Amsterdam. A year later, in January 1930, Sergei Eisenstein visited Holland, and his touristic travels with people from the Filmliga and the Dutch press were documented on film. In December 1931, Dziga Vertov came to Holland, and The Man with the Movie Camera was shown in the Uitkijk. It was evident that this was one of the highlights of the Soviet cinema of that time. We are very fortunate that this print is still in the collection of Eye, and has been preserved in recent years. Some shortcomings of the film print, such as a missing scene, were restored, and here you see on the left the original inflammable nitrate print, and on the right the restoration print, which was first digitally restored before it was recorded back again to film. Most film prints of The Man with the Movie Camera that are known are made with a so-called sound aperture. This means essentially that a part of the image is missing on the left side of the image, where in the sound era the soundtrack was printed. But The Man with the Movie Camera is a silent film and uses the full aperture and surface of the film image for its meticulous and carefully composed pictures. Later this year, the Eye restoration of The Man with the Movie Camera will be available online through the Eye Film Player. A great opportunity to see a film that is not only a classic of film history, but also a key film in the history of the Eye Film Museum.